Hey guys, okay, BA and DA. Do you know what those terms stand for? Well, quite simply, it's building approval and development approval. DA can also be used for development assessment and development application. However, in this context, we're talking about development approval. Do you know what the difference is between the two and when each of those two are triggered? Well, in this video, that's exactly what we're going to cover off. So if that sounds like it's something that interests you, stick around. Okay, so if we're going to focus on the differences between those two terms, we need to start with the who. More specifically, who is responsible for issuing each of these approvals? You will often hear people refer to BA as council approval, because back in the day they were actually issued or approved by council. See, the industry was actually privatised in the late 1990s. I think it was like 1996 or 1998, don't quote me on it, something like that. These days, however, the approval is actually issued by a private certifier, also referred to as a building certifier for short, or if you want to be technically correct, a building surveyor. But no one ever uses that term. Just quite simply refer to them as certifiers. DA, on the other hand, is still issued by council. We as private town planners sort of act as the middleman between the public and council in terms of lodging those applications. So, certifier, council. That's the big difference there. Okay, next we're going to focus on what. More specifically, what do each of those two applications or approvals focus on? In super simple terms, I like to say the building approval focuses more on the internal impacts. So is the building going to be structurally sound? Is it going to stay upright? Development approval, on the other hand, focuses more on the external impacts. So the impacts on the neighbours in terms of amenity, the impact on the streetscape in terms of character, the impact on the wider area in terms of things like noise, odour, parking, etc., etc. You get the idea. So internal impacts, impacts on yourself, the building, the structure itself, external impacts, impacts on everyone else around you. Now, the final thing we're going to focus on is when. Okay, when are each of these triggered? I would suggest a building approval is required in 99.99% of situations. So anytime you're making a structural change. So basically, the minute you do any building work on a property, except something simple like building a front fence or changing a doorknob or anything like that. DA, on the other hand, is a lot less frequent. If I had to put a number on, and just pulling this out of thin air, I'd probably suggest maybe a quarter of the time you actually need a development approval. So the question is, what triggers DA? Well, quite simply, we have 27 different zones, 27 different overlays, and approximately 80 different neighbourhood plans. Each and every single one of those things, or any combination of those things, can trigger a town planning application. So, BA is required when you have structural changes. DA is required when any one of those millions and millions of different things, not quite, slight over exaggeration, but you get what I'm trying to say here, triggers an application. Now, in this video series, this is the stuff we're going to focus on. So I'm going to try and educate you or give you insight into the zones, the overlays, and the neighbourhood plans. If you'd like to sort of look ahead and see what's coming, we did a post earlier this week. I think it was a caricature of me standing there going, mission accomplished. If you want to look back at that, that's a mind up of all the potential video topics we're going to cover off over the next year. Sure, some of them might change. I might bump a few up, bump a few down. I might slightly tweak the topics, but it'll give you a general idea as to what's coming. I think that covers everything I wanted to talk about today. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got three. Number one, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site-specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number two, Brisbane town planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number three, what was my number three? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all.